Game 7 on the road. If you don't bring it, you're going home.
It's in! Buddy Hield delivers a big one at the end of the first quarter. Hield hits another. 1.5 for Buddy Hield.
Steph Curry putting on a show here in the fourth quarter.
He has nothing to prove, and yet he's going to come in and try to prove something every single night.
Into the second round go the Golden State Warriors.
What you think your reputation is in the city?
I'm a winner.
Well, of that, there is very little question. Steph Curry and the Warriors advance to play Minnesota. Now, this is both Windy and I find this stat impossible to believe.
You're just debating it.
I made everybody go back and check it like 6 times, but it's accurate. The Warriors are underdogs at ESPN Bet Sportsbook in their upcoming series with Minnesota. This is the first time since Steve Kerr became their coach that the Warriors are underdogs to win a playoff series. It's impossible to believe, and yet it is true. And we were going through it in our minds. And maybe some of the years that we didn't expect them to be great, they either got knocked out in the play-in and didn't make it to the playoffs. They have never been an underdog in this entire run.
We just showed that stat about what happens to teams with one day off.
Right.
Coming in against rested teams. It was a 20-point differential. Right. That's what we're talking about tonight. Nuggets coming into Golden State or Oklahoma City. We could talk the same stat tomorrow with the Warriors having to go up to Minnesota. So I think there's a good chance Minnesota is going to get leverage in this series. And Minnesota, as the 6th seed, wakes up today with home court advantage. So I kind of get it. It wasn't like the Warriors impressed us the last 3 or so games of this series.
Well, and yet they've got all the experience and all the rest of that. And Jay, Will, you and I were talking this morning about sort of the big game hunting that Ant Edwards gets the chance to continue doing now. He's knocked off. He's sort of making his reputation on knocking off the legends of the game, and now he gets his crack against Steph Curry.
I mean, you got to think about it, Greeny. Like when he walks into his home, the pelts on the wall, right? And the pelts on the wall are, you talk about Kevin Durant, Devin Booker. The pelts on the wall are Nikola Jokic, Jamal Murray. The pelts on the wall are LeBron James and Luka Doncic. And now you get a chance. Look, it ain't man, it ain't Superman, it ain't Batman. Like Lakers in 5, right? Like he carries that type of momentum, and he's hunting for pelts. And now to have the pelt to go against Stephen Curry. And do not forget, they just won a gold medal together. If there's anybody that spent a lot of time together this summer in training and understand how each one really works, that is Anthony Edwards and Stephen Curry. But also, if there's anybody that understands what Ant Edwards likes and doesn't like, that is Steve Kerr, who coached USA basketball this summer.
Yeah, excellent point, Jay Will. You know, when I think about this matchup, in particular Anthony Edwards, we all know the show Game of Thrones. There's a character named Jaime Lannister. What's his nickname there? The Kingslayer. That's exactly what Anthony Edwards has become. You mentioned the players, Jokic, KD, now LeBron, Luka, and now he's salivating at the opportunity to take down Steph, the greatest shooter that we've ever seen. And you know what's crazy? You're talking about how you can take inspiration from being, mentored by the likes of who he has taken down. Well, Anthony Edwards actually led the NBA, if I'm correct, in 3-point makes this year. He emulated a lot of Steph's game to help him grow, and now he's carrying his teammates alongside him. This is not just the Ant show. He has that it factor that makes his teammates better. What Nasrid has done, what Jaden McDaniels has done, they believe because that's the moxie, that's the swag, that's the aura that Anthony Edwards has.
We really, in this last series against the Lakers, we saw tremendous play by the role players, by the Wolves. Jaden McDaniels, probably the finest moment in his career. He had 2 or 3 awesome games in that series. If they can, Julius Randle just had the best series of his career, okay? Yeah. If they can keep that up with home court, with the size advantage that they have on the Warriors, with the depth advantage that they have on the Warriors, with home court advantage, this is a situation where you remember that this team made the conference finals last year, and they finished the season 17-4. It didn't get noticed because we were seeing all this other stuff. They finished the season 17-4. They go 4-1 against the Lakers. A lot of things are pointing towards the Wolves being in good position.
So we'll have tomorrow to sort of Jay Will wants a timeout. Go.
Wendy, I'm just going to say, I hear you. Last time they played, though, I think Golden State won. And all I will say is the Lakers have a very slow, methodical pace. What do we often talk about with the way they play? We always felt they should have sped the game up, try to make the game a little bit faster, considering they had that height disadvantage. The one thing that will be interesting to see how Minnesota plays, and yes, they do have the physicality and the size advantage, but I don't think Steph gets bothered as much by size. I think he gets bothered more by guards that can get up underneath him, like Amen Thompson and also Fred VanVleet, who are faster and quicker laterally. I know Jaden McDaniels, those guys have size, but also he allows him to play off of it more. And it also forces this Minnesota team to be disciplined defensively with all the ball movement. That is not what you saw against the Lakers. They could be physical because the Lakers' offense was stagnant at times. That's not how Golden State plays.
Let me point one thing out. Draymond Green last night got his 4th technical foul in 7 games. 7 technicals, you get suspended. He has 2 flagrant fouls. He gets 1 more flagrant 2 or 2 more flagrant 1s, he gets suspended. He is playing against Rudy Gobert in this series, who is a famous antagonist of his. I'm not saying it's a lead storyline going into this series. I would just keep it in mind.
It is a storyline going into the series for sure, as the Warriors, just to sort of clean up some of the stats that you were giving, Jay Will, the Warriors won the season series 3-1, but Jimmy Butler didn't play in any of those games, so this is an entirely new series, and the Timberwolves can become the first team ever to eliminate both Steph Curry and LeBron James in the same postseason.
Don't tell that to Ant.
So you want to talk about going big game hunting?
Jimmy Butler
Ant-Man
will tell it to Ant.
has a chance to do it. All right, we're back on Get Up, and it is time for an NBA edition of D's Notes. Here we go. We got the Knicks and Celtics beginning a playoff series tonight, and to say that the regular season series was lopsided would not be giving it all its due. The Celtics won all 4 games, and they won by an average of 16 points a game. They averaged 21 threes in the 4-game season sweep. So we're looking for reasons to think that the Knicks can make this into a series. Can you give us one, Jay Williams?
I'll say this. Look, this series isn't about Jalen Brunson. It's not about Karl Anthony Towns. It's not about Mikal Bridges. It's about Tibbs. And it's about if Tibbs can actually change from his old school rigidity to modern flexibility. And if he can't, then maybe he's not the right guy for the job moving forward. And I talk about the way you defend, right? The traditional things that typically when you get back in transition, you protect the rim. You can't do that against Boston. If they're making 21 threes on 43% shooting, get the flare out to the 3-point line, right? When you go over a screen, blitz it, you got to rotate out to the outside. You give up 2s and you don't get beat by 3s. You can't beat Boston by grinding. You have to beat Boston by evolving. And I want to see if Tibbs, if his strategy can be evolved. Everybody has the Boston Celtics winning. We think they're a better team. But this strategy is going to be so imperative, and the execution of the strategy will determine if the Knicks have a legitimate chance to stay in it.
Chiney, what do you think?
It's not just about Tibbs, it's also about Josh Hart. Because if we're going to talk about strategies that can help benefit the Knicks, Josh Hart has to knock down threes. Over the course of the regular season, he shot 33% from 3. So what have the Celtics done? They've let him shoot. They typically guard him with the center. It's Porzingis, it's Cornette, or it's Horford that are guarding Josh Hart because they can really muck things up sagging off of him. So it's going to be interesting to see if Josh Hart brings his shot, which, by the way, he's 7 for 14, 50% shooting from 3. If he carries that through, the Knicks will be more competitive.
Windman, you are, well, depending on the weather, either taking a train or a plane up to Boston today.
LaGuardia's closed.
Look, okay.
Big news came in yesterday by the Celtics and nobody noticed it. They released their injury report and it was empty. No Drew Holiday with the hamstring, no Jason Tatum with the wrist, no Jaylen Brown with the knee. They're rested, they're healthy, they're 20-4 in the playoffs over the last 2 seasons. No one's gotten them to Game 6. Forget about taking them to Game 7. No one's gotten them to Game 6. I could ask Hembo when the last time a coach got the Knicks to the second round in back-to-back years, but I know it. It's 30 years ago, Pat Riley. I see all these people here in New York complaining about Tibbs. I realize it's not perfect. I realize the Knicks are not perfect. They are no business being in this series. Jason Tatum averaged 34 points a game against them. If they get this series to 6, you should have a virtual ticker tape parade. I am just saying they are not equipped. Assuming Boston stays healthy, they are not equipped to compete in this series. They take a game, they play these games into the fourth quarters, they will have done well. I'm just being honest.
Can I draw your attention, if I may, to a game that was played on April 8th? Now, I understand that by that time, this was the very end of the regular season. The Celtics, well, candidly, the Celtics and the Knicks were sort of locked into their playoff positioning. We talk about the 16-point average margin of victory. A lot of that was skewed by a major blowout at the beginning, and the Knicks really were not healthy in almost any of their matchups. I'm just trying to make a little bit of an argument here. In a game in which Jason Tatum played 48 minutes, Porzingis played 39, Holiday played, Derek White played, Jaylen Brown only played 22 minutes. But the Celtics beat the Knicks by 2 points, 119-117, in a very close game at the end. Is there any way that I could make an argument that maybe that game will be a little more indicative of how competitive we might expect this series to be?
Yes, and I agree. They will not be a 16-point differential in these games. But yes, the Celtics are the heavy favorites here. And if they get it to 6, they will have done a great job.
Do we have the picks up? I think we have pick bars up here, right? Can we see what? Go ahead, Jay Will.
They still gave up an average of 120 points in all 4 of their games.
Right.
Like that's a significant issue. I hear what people are talking about, obviously scoring. Yes, you need to do that. But defensively is what the real challenge is with the versatility that Boston provides.
Look, the way you beat this is really, I hate to say it this way. There's only 2 ways the Celtics lose. One is that they get hurt, which I don't want to speak into existence, but obviously there's a history of injury proneness, particularly regarding Porzingis. And the second is you got to hope they're cold a bunch of nights, right? They're going to get looks. They're going to get looks from 3.
Yes, and they will be cold.
Right.
And I think, honestly, the Knicks' game plan is get the game to the 4th quarter.
Right.
Because you have Brunson, and one of the ways you do that, they traded for Karl Towns to take advantage or at least have a matchup for Porzingis.
Right.
If Porzingis had a very poor first-round series, but by his standards, he didn't play well. If Towns trounces Porzingis, that can close down the gap, but you know it's not going to be. They have Al Horford. They have different things they can do. They could put a smaller player on Karl Towns, but you need Towns to dominate if you're the Knicks.
So our second D's note involves Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Nikola Jokic. Now, we are assuming that when the voting is announced, those 2 guys are going to finish 1-2 in MVP in that way. If so, we will see for the 7th time, this will be the 8th time that the top 2 finishers for MVP have met in a postseason series. The last time it happened was in 2017. James Harden was runner-up for MVP, and he beat the MVP winner, Russell Westbrook. Harden and the Rockets won it in 5. Westbrook averaged a 37-point triple-double, but it wasn't enough. Harden got the win there. Before that, James Harden was involved again. He was the runner-up to Steph in the MVP voting in 2015. The Warriors won that series in 5. Steph averaged 31. Harden averaged 28. Warriors would go on to win the championship. Before that, we'd go back to 2012. It was LeBron and KD. LeBron won the MVP. KD finished 2nd. They met in the finals. LeBron and the Heat won in 5. LeBron was the MVP of the finals. It was his first NBA championship. There are 4 other instances in the last 35 years of the number 1 and number 2 finishers for MVP meeting in a playoff series, and Michael Jordan was involved in all 4 of them. The most recent was in '98. He was the league MVP. He beat the runner-up Karl Malone and the Jazz in the finals. They had actually met in the finals the year before when Malone was the MVP and Jordan's team won as well. Either way, the point we make here is that history tells us the guy who wins the MVP wins this series. 5 of the previous 7 times the MVP has finished the player who finishes 2nd. So history says, Brian Windhorst, that SGA, assuming he wins this thing, and I think we all expect him to, has history on his side against the Joker.
What I saw in all of those was that the better team won all of them. Now, maybe the MVP hasn't always been on the better team, but in all of those series, and anybody wants to dispute me, maybe that's true, but it just from the first sight, that's what I thought. And in this series, Oklahoma City is the better team. Now, Jokic he's a great equalizer, and he's remarkable. And if you're a Nuggets fan, what you believe in is how well your role players just played to get you out of that Clippers series. Westbrook was great. Christian Brown was great. I don't know if you call Aaron Gordon a role player, but he was awesome. That supplemented Jokic. Your role players play like that, you believe, but the Thunder have the better team. The Thunder have the rest advantage. The Thunder have home court.
Chiney, how about SGA here? Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is going to be the MVP of the league. He has been brilliant. I have said on the air that I sort of regret not having voted for him last year when I think I should have, one way or the other. What is at stake for Shai Gilgeous-Alexander looking to get out of the 2nd round against Jokic and Murray?
This matchup is the immovable object of Nikola Jokic versus the unstoppable force that truly is the Thunder, led by the MVP in SGA. And a lot of people look at the first round versus the Grizzlies and say, he didn't play his best, or maybe this is not the MVP that we have seen just yet. He still averaged 27.8. This man is a walking 30-piece, and going head-to-head, because these guys do damage in different ways, they both use the dribble. You know, Jokic uses the dribble to pass, to score himself, but SGA uses the dribble to straight up dominate. He'll get the ball, he'll attack, and players, even Anthony Edwards said that man is a bad man when he has the ball in his hands. So overall, I think that SGA has an opportunity to cement, you know, the last two seasons. It's not just this season where they finished best in the West. It's last year too, and finally he's got the requisite help. They made improvements. They got Hartenstein. Now you have Chet. You have the centers that are supposed to get you over the hump. This is a great opportunity for SGA to, you know, add or move, you know, progress those narratives forward.
Very quickly, as we put our picks up on the screen here, can I take a moment to scold Jay Williams, who decided when we asked him for a pick to call it a toss-up. I can't think of something less. What is that even an option? Did we give him that choice?
So
no, but Windy doesn't make picks because you're a reporter. You cover these games. You're obligated not to make these picks. I am fully bought in.
Is there any Duke guys on this team? I don't know.
On OKC. I can't. Jay will somehow. I said, hey, who's going to win this series? And Jay said, I can't decide. And we decided that was okay for the topic bar. We needed a meeting. Artie, I insist they have a meeting to look into this because it is just not okay.
Try to post at what I look like.